Programming note real quick. I'm here till 10. Chris Hand is out sick, so I'm here till 10. Joan Jones will actually be hosting between 10 and 12. And you can always watch us on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, 99.7, WTN.com as well. If you would, like and subscribe, and you can always watch the show after it's done. And Jonathan Fahey, Jonathan, as I always like to say, maybe the show will make more sense the second time around. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. You?
I'm doing good. All right, let's talk about Tish James. I got two topics I want to talk to you about this morning. Number one is James Comey, and number two is Tish James. I'm calling this my No One Is Above the Law update. I don't know about you, but I'm really enjoying the memes where people are showing a mugshot of Tish James, and the piece of paper in front of her is her tweet from May 30th of 2024, where she tweeted out, "No one is above the law." But of course, as you and I know, she was talking about Donald Trump, but now people are talking about her. So what do you think about the reality of possibly finding a conviction for mortgage fraud and these other things on Tish James?
I think it's more realistic than I would have thought before reading the indictment for a couple of reasons. It seems to me, reading the indictment, she bought this place as I think a secondary residence, meaning a vacation home,
right,
with the understanding she wasn't going to rent this out or do anything else other than occupy the house when she was there. And in fact, she rented it out, and I don't think she ever stayed there. I'm not sure if that part is true, but I think it's pretty clear cut that. And by the way, she saved $18,000 to $19,000 by doing so, which is not insignificant. So it doesn't make it sort of some lie that didn't make a difference. It's a lie that made a massive difference. So I think this case, if it plays out this way, that she put these one thing on the application saying it's going to be used by her, and then her intention was to rent it out, and she in fact did rent it out. I think she has a tough time here. I really do. I don't want to discount what may come out in trial because we don't know, but that part of it seems fairly clean and fairly clear cut.
It's a document, and then you're right when you talk about, because people obviously, Jonathan Fahey, people are obviously comparing this to what she tried to get Donald Trump on, which was basically saying that Mar-a-Lago was, if I'm not, she said that Trump was trying to hide the true value of Mar-a-Lago for, tax and loan purposes, whatever it was. But that was all very gray area. And it seemed to me like clearly Donald Trump was in the right on that one, on the worth of Mar-a-Lago. And there was all these other people that came out, including the banks and the people involved in the process that agreed that this whole case against Donald Trump, it was on the up and up, and nobody lost any money. In the case of Tish James, it is on the document. Literally, she says that this is going to be a secondary home. It is not going to be a rental unit, and the bank did lose money, as you just mentioned, about $19,000. It sounds like, and you're right, we don't know what else is going to come up. Is it possible, and I don't know the law clearly, but is it possible that she intended for it to be a secondary home and then she realized, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and rent it out because I'm never here? I mean, that is a legit thing to say.
Yeah, that's something I'm curious about. But here's what's kind of interesting about it. She's apparently very, very wealthy. And this home that she bought was like, I want to say like $137,000. So it just doesn't make sense that somebody that and this is just my understanding, I don't know facts, for fact, but if she's really wealthy, it wouldn't make that much sense you would buy a secondary home in Virginia that's, not a particularly expensive home for your vacation house. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So my guess is, in the speculation world, the intention was to rent it out, or the other thing that I think is more likely, this was almost as a favor to a relative or somebody else that they couldn't get a mortgage on their own, so she did it and then rented it to them. So the intention was always to rent it, and that's my guess. The way this thing will play out, that she never lived there, never intended to live there, bought it to either help somebody out or just to rent it out. But either way, I think she lied in order to get a higher rate, and maybe even to get a mortgage at all, So,
Right.
but certainly to get a lower rate, I guess. So
Right.
she would save money.
So let me ask this, and this may be a little insider baseball, but I don't know what year this was, but you said this home was $137,000 in Norfolk, as they like to say in Virginia, as you well know, Norfolk, Virginia. That's not a good house. Like, as far as I can, because I remember I spent some time in Norfolk, and $137,000 in Norfolk, that's not a very good house. Probably not in a particularly good neighborhood. I'm just saying. So you're right. If she is a woman of wealthy means, then one of two things is going on. Either she does have plans to rent it out, maybe to a relative, maybe as some sort of an investment, or she herself is going to use it as, a place to go to meet friends, if you know what I mean. There's also that aspect of the conversation, too. We don't really know. But the bottom line is, it is on the documents. And if you were defending Letitia James, how would you defend this if it's on the documents? It just seems like it's open and shut.
I think the defense will probably be, they may say it's not material, but I think they lose that, meaning it can't make a difference because it did. They may say her intention originally was to do one thing and that changed, and she just didn't go back to readdress the mortgage situation, which that could make some sense. Or that she, I think, used a power of attorney on some of this stuff, so saying, oh, I told them the right information and they misunderstood it. But all of those, I think, seem problematic because she financially benefited from this.
It's her signature, man. It is her signature.
So I think that's the tough part. Like, anyone can make a mistake filling in a form, and they shouldn't be prosecuted for that. But when you're making a decent amount of money and it's a significant thing on the home, like, hey, why are you buying this home? Oh, I'm going to live here. Okay, you're a lower risk to the bank. That totally makes sense, and we all do that. So I think the defense will be, prosecution was, whatever, it was vindictive prosecution and all that stuff. In Norfolk, that won't fly as well as it might up here in Northern Virginia, where Jim Comey is being prosecuted, because you have a lot of military people down there that actually may be offended by this conduct, that you're wealthy and sort of gaming the system when they all fill out their mortgages, honestly, meaning the jurors.
Is this the kind of, real quick, I'm gonna ask you the question, and then I'm gonna go to traffic and let you respond to the question. But in your experience, many years as an attorney and so forth, do you think this is something that she could actually go to jail for?
No, this is at the lower end. I mean, could she go to jail? Theoretically, yes. I think it would be highly unlikely. I think most likely some sort of, if she was convicted, some term of probation. But the one thing that's interesting in the federal system, if you plead guilty and accept responsibility, you get a lower sentencing guideline number than if you go to trial and get convicted. So if she were to go to trial, maybe present a defense or lied on the stand or something, that might tip it against, her not going to jail. But I think generally among sort of fraud cases, mortgage fraud cases in the federal system, this is at the lower end of them. So I think it would be unrealistic to say she's going to be, going in the who's cow or anything like that.
James Comey, of course, we all know what's going on with him. I don't know if you and I have talked about this yet, but, former director of the FBI, James Comey, he has been, of course, charged. He has pled not guilty. So where do you think that this case is going to go? It's interesting because you read, conservative attorneys who, talk on TV and stuff, which, by the way, you're one of them. You're on Fox News all the time. And then you listen to left-leaning attorneys. The left-leaning attorneys will say, "Oh, this is going to be a tough one to charge," and so forth for the Republicans. And the Republicans will say this is a slam dunk. I don't know. So you tell me. You think James Comey, to use your terminology, you think he's actually going to go to the hooscow?
No, I don't. And I think this case is tougher than the other one, with the caveat that I don't really know. It's hard to really figure out what the facts of the case, because the indictment was just a very limited indictment, which the government has every right to do. But perjury cases are trickier, meaning you'll have a statement under oath and you have to prove there's something, false, but it has to be precise and things like that. So I don't know how this unfolds. I assume it unfolds. They have the statement that he never leaked any of this information to a third party, and then the third party testifies and says, yes, he gave me this information with the intention to leak it, and then they would have evidence that, hey, here's where it was. It was in the New York Times or whatever it is. But I don't know how that unfolds, because we've heard different things about who the person being leaked to. Is it Andy McCabe? Is it this Professor Richmond? And both of these were people that were tight with James Comey, which might not make them the most favorable witnesses for the government. If you have a witness that's sort of fighting you along the way, it might make things harder. Also, the Northern Virginia jury is going to be tougher for the government, meaning for the U.S. attorney to convict, than the Norfolk jury, and that's where James Comey is, because you have government workers. You're probably going to have a lot of people that hate Donald Trump, with a passion, but also are generally trustworthy of government actors. So I think all of those things favor Jim Comey. Also, his the charges, he'll have a motion to dismiss for vindictive prosecution, which again that might get some play as well. But I think I would put the two charges. Letitia James is far more likely to be a conviction than the James Comey case. Again, with the caveat of who knows how these things play out, and I don't, I know just the surface of what the case is.
It is interesting. You got all these folks on the left that are screaming, by the way, guilty. I should say James Comey pleaded not guilty to criminal charges, accusing him of making false statements and obstructing a congressional investigation. That whole thing, the judge is scheduling the trial to begin on January 5th. I do find it interesting that you do have a lot of folks saying that Donald Trump is going after his political enemies. Well, if his political enemies, two things can be true. You can be a political enemy of Donald Trump, but you may have also committed a crime. Perhaps that is why you hate Donald Trump, and maybe that is what why you committed the crime, because of your hatred for the president of the United States. In the case of James Comey, but it seems to me like if there is some sort of smoke there, in the case of James Comey, if there's some sort of smoke there, then it does. And I may be wrong on this, I'll fully admit. But if there's smoke, then certainly they should go ahead and see if there's something there that they could bring him up on, just because if he committed a crime, then he's got to pay the price. If he ultimately is found not guilty or the case is dismissed, I still think that the Trump administration was right for trying to find out or trying to get a conviction if he indeed did something wrong.
That's a good point that you made. The when you said, because you hate Donald Trump doesn't mean you're immune from crimes.
Right.
Like that would be the immune. Hey, I hate Donald Trump, so you have to dismiss the case. You're absolutely right, and you do look at the pattern of really not all illegal, but a lot of nefarious conduct to undermine Donald Trump from a lot of government actors that was going on there. And you also look at the flip side. Almost every one of those Trump cases, including the January 6th cases against the protesters, all of them collapsed under their own with legal scrutiny, because I talked about the January 6th. The Supreme Court overruled the main charge, this obstruction charge, that applied to virtually, I think, most of them. All the Donald Trump cases fell apart, even without him winning the election. They were all going in the tubes with the immunity ruling and other stuff. So, but the point of the lawfare, when you look at it against Donald Trump, it was to make him suffer, to make him lose the election, and to make everyone around him. Everyone, if you were in his campaign, if you were his lawyer, if you were in his business, they were trying to ruin people, and a lot of people were financially devastated by just having to go through the process, and it was really shameful. But your point is such a good one, that's like you don't get out of jail free by just hating Donald Trump. That's absurd. So, and Donald Trump has a responsibility, and if there's a violation that can be proven, why should they not charge it is really the question. And again, we don't know all the facts and what's going on behind the scenes. All
right. Going to be interesting to see. So, Jonathan, have a great weekend, and I'm certain talk to you next week. And it is always great to get your insight. By the way, Jonathan, real quick, how can people find you on Twitter?
John for Fairfax.
All right, John for Fairfax. And if you want to find him, just follow me on X at Dan Mandis Show and look through all my followers, and you'll find Jonathan Fahey. So you heard that story about the 70-year-old woman who works at the Ryman Theater, and she's leaving. Imagine this, 70 years old.
Part-time bartender.
part-time bartender. And this dude walks up and basically karate chops her right in the chest.
It was a kick.
Yeah, karate chop. Yeah, and well, I guess with his
karate kick.
Karate kick. Thank you. Karate kick. And
he jumped up in the air to do it too. So there was a lot of force in that.
This dude, Pablo Arias.
Gee, that sounds pretty.
I know someone had that
foreign.
in their newscast.
Listen, here's what I want to know: is it legal or not?
They say it's from Pennsylvania.
That doesn't mean crap.
Yep.
That does not mean. I mean, I'm not yelling at you.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia was a Maryland man.
Yes, exactly,
Right?
Joan.
Right?
Thank you. That's the kind of insight you're going to get 10 to 12 today. Joan is filling in later today for Chris Hand, 10 to 12. So I cannot for the life of me understand why this dude was not charged with attempted murder. Now hear me out. And Sam, your parents are lawyers and all that, so I know that you have some insight on this maybe. Arias is charged with felony elder abuse. They call this an e-felony that carries a lighter penalty and a lower bond than more serious charges. His bond was set at $5,000, meaning he was able to go free for just $500 after karate kicking a 70-year-old woman in the chest, I'm assuming as hard as he could, and leaving her on the street. Why is he not charged with attempted murder?
Oh, attempted murder would have to be kind of a gross amount of injury, that there was life-saving measures that had to be instituted in order to keep it from being a death. I would posit the question, why wasn't he charged with aggravated assault, which is a Class C or Class D felony involving intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly causing serious injury or, or using a deadly weapon, which has a $10,000 fine. I imagine the bond would be a little bit higher as well, probably potentially high enough that he wouldn't be able to be back out on the street.
Let me ask you this, though. If he is targeting real man, by the way, Pablo, targeting, do you remember the knockout game? Joan, I know you remember the knockout game.
Oh, man, I was in D.C. at the time,
right.
And there was so much of that going on.
If you folks don't remember, the knockout game was where you would have these jackholes, walk up oftentimes to elderly people, and one woman was behind her walker. And these guys would walk up, and they would clock them upside the head. Yeah. The knockout game, just randomly.
Horrible.
That's what this dude, Pablo Arias, did. And this poor woman, I can imagine, 70 years old. She had to have, all of this surgery. She apparently had severe injuries. I don't know how bad her injuries were. Let me see if she had to have hip replacement surgery.
Yeah, which I would say warrants a significant injury. And I don't know how, if this goes in front of a grand jury, they need to return a true bill superseding indictment of aggravated assault, which is an upgrade over the elder abuse. You can be charged with aggravated elder abuse, but I think that is typically something you'd see out of a nursing home.
Advocate.
So in the paper today, they said that he was charged with a Class E felony.
Yeah, so the lowest.
So they could, and because of that, he had that $5,000 bail. He posted $500.
Yep.
So, but if they charged him with the Class B, it would be a whole different story. More bail and.
Yep, Class B felony. They say advocates argue the charge should have been classified as a B felony due to the severity of the woman's injuries, a crime that carries a sentence of 8 to 30 years. And typically requires a higher bond. Prosecutors, this is what you were saying, Sam, prosecutors can still upgrade the charge once the extent of her injuries is fully documented. This guy was back out on the street before this woman even had surgery.
Well, and the irritating thing about Class C felonies in Tennessee, obviously there's going to be an opportunity to upgrade this, but as it stands right now, if he were to go to trial for the Class E elder abuse, he would be eligible at sentencing for what's called diversion, which is essentially a probation program that says you do good behavior, you do the probation, and we'll wipe this off your record anyway, even though it was a felony.
Soft on crime policies, man.
So whose fault is this? Who charged him? Who was behind that?
Well, it seems to be a very liberal Davidson County district attorney.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously. What's his name again? Glenn Funk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one that was under investigation for probing microphones around the courthouse?
The same.
Oh.
So you have
Funky business.
You have these. I mean, it's just like Memphis. How many times have we talked about the district attorney in Memphis? I mean, not
Steve
enough
Mulroy.
time. Yeah, Mulroy. And so this is just that locally here in Nashville.
Yeah.
And I don't.
At the mother church of country music, no less. Like an iconic area. This woman is working at a historical place. She's a part of the community. Her age is a factor in all of this, and we still get nothing.
I'm still, and I get what you're saying. The law can be very complicated. But from an emotional standpoint, what angers me is that you have a woman, 70 years old, and this dude walks up and karate kicks her in the chest. Now, I'm sorry, but if you are doing that to a 70-year-old woman, you are trying to kill her. You are.
Yes.
And I had the same
Agreed.
thing when we were talking about the knockout game in New York and D.C. I don't think we saw a lot of that here in Nashville, but a lot of that on the East Coast. And if you're kicking a 70-year-old woman in the chest with all your might, you're trying to kill that woman.
And here's the messed up part. If you were the prosecutor in the grand jury hearing over this case, you could make that argument, and the defense isn't going to be present to try and counteract that. But I guarantee you they're not going to do that. They're not going to make that, because that is a extremely logical and well thought out process that ran through the Mandis mind of attempted murder.
Yeah. But the law is so quirky and so stupid, and we've got district attorneys. You know what I wonder? Because I don't know. And Glenn Funk, those people won't call me back. But is that a case where that would go directly to Glenn Funk's office, or is this something that like a lower person may have made this decision? One
of the ADAs, the assistant district attorneys.
Assistant district attorneys.
Yeah, they're probably the ones making that decision.
I don't. It is stunning beyond belief.
I think
that the people of Nashville approve of this kind of thing.
So what happens in the process is he was arrested. He was taken to the county jail, and so it's probably at Davidson County Jail that the magistrate set the charges based on what the officers told the magistrate, and they did not obviously have the full extent of this woman's injuries documented at that time, because that was happening simultaneously. She's being transported to the hospital. He's going to the jail. But it does look like somebody got some shots in. When you look at his mugshot, his chin's pretty cut up. So good on whoever did that.
Well, if this was the woman's walking home from was it the Ryman? The Ryman. And so there's a lot of people around. So if this dude walks up and karate kicks a woman, then there's a lot of people around there that perhaps took care of business. Maybe it was the cops. I don't know. And I don't know if I didn't see anything in the story that I had. Was there any alcohol involved? Like, was this dude drunk? He's got to be high on something, right? Or am I wrong on that?
He was said to have been pretty drunk, and he left his phone at the scene.
Yeah, you dumbass.
So he was right around the corner, actually, when police were able to get him. I think somebody saw what was going on and said, hey, he went that way.
Yeah.
And he didn't get very far. And,
Right.
Of course, they were able to take his phone, and they knew who he was right away.
Just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And Glenn Funk, I don't know how you sleep at night running the DA's office the way that you do with these soft on crime policies. Now, they will tell you, oh, well, look at the number of prosecutions, and, we do a great job. Be that as it may, well, then please, somebody in the district attorney's office, who won't call me back, please call me on my phone and explain to me and the people of Nashville and WTN, how is it that this guy was charged a lesser crime, a lesser charge than what he should have been charged with? My opinion, it should have been attempted murder. But just please tell us this is what I want to know. The rationale. Tell me the rationale. Is it that we don't have the prison space to accommodate yet another one of these guys in prison? So what we're going to do is just go easy on the charges, and so that they could just, get their hands slapped and off they go. What is it?
Yeah.
What is it? Because I just want to understand.
I can give you some insight after we check traffic.
It's going to be nice. High of 75, partly cloudy, feeling like 78. Similar weather throughout the weekend, by the way. Lows in the lower 50s.
Bonfire weather.
It is bonfire weather, actually.
It's official.
Do you know what I hate about bonfires? I love bonfires, but do you know the one thing that I hate about them?
The smoke blowing in your face?
The smoke. No matter where I go, it like follows me.
Do you not know the I hate rabbits chant?
No.
Apparently, the old lore is if you're sitting at a bonfire or campfire and the smoke's blowing in your eyes, if you start saying I hate rabbits, it'll bend around you.
I think somebody was goofing on you when they told you that.
It's not my. Listen, that's been running for quite a while. That's not something I learned.
I think that makes about as much sense as this Pablo Arias being charged with a lowercase felony kicking this woman.
So to play devil's advocate for that.
Yes.
In the heat of the moment, officers are going to detain this man. They're going to arrest him. They're going to transport him to the jail. The magistrate at the jail, this I think happened at night, is going to make the ultimate determination on how to book him. So he's booked on whatever the magistrate deems to be the appropriate charge based on what the officers are bringing in for the information. Now, the officers don't have anything on body cam to show the magistrate. They're just going off a witness reporting, hey, he kicked this woman. Well, if that's all the magistrate gets, then she's going to look at her book and the TCA codes and go, all right, well, that fits elder abuse. You say he kicked an older woman. The magistrate's not aware that she's going to have a hip replacement surgery when that's happening. So that's to play advocate on their side. But it is still a corrupt system, in fact, to the point where the other day they put out an article asking for the police need our help in locating a felon wanted on 19 warrants here in Nashville after a dangerous chase.
Okay.
So it's a broken system.
Clearly.
But in this aspect, we'll see how broken it is. That's the unfortunate nature of criminal law and sometimes civil law. You got to play the long game.
Right.
So we will see what happens at a grand jury indictment and what they return after all the facts are laid out by the prosecution, and we'll know whether or not the prosecution's doing their job.
You know what's interesting? 8974 says, I was on a Nashville grand jury last year. We had several cases where we upped the charges. I was pleasantly surprised that most folks felt the same way as I did. That's interesting, actually. I've never been on Joan, you ever been on a grand jury?
I have not. I've actually tried so hard to get on a grand jury. I used to actually do transcribing, and I did grand jury cases. And man, they were like so deep into detail. It's like reading a novel,
right?
And so I tried to get on a grand jury, and I.
Hey, by the way, Mario says if you are around a bonfire, that the smoke follows the beautiful. That's what Mario says.
There you go. They follow you, Dan.
Well, I'm the only one going to be down there actually this weekend, so it will follow me. Anyway, yeah, I don't get it. And the last thing I want, because people will say, "Oh, Nashville's just as bad as Memphis." No, it's not. No. Just like the people that say that Nashville traffic is worse than Atlanta traffic, just stop it. You don't know what you're talking about. I love you all. To
be fair, Atlanta does have some 6-lane highway space.
Yeah.
Things can clear up when the appropriate time is reached. It is rather aggravating to be on a 2-lane highway or interstate and have a bunch of idiots.
I-70, what is it I-75 in Atlanta? No, is it I-75 in Atlanta versus 24 in?
I think so.
In Nashville. Because Nashville has terrible traffic on I-24.
Yeah.
I mean, that we certainly know. We had a big problem earlier this morning, right, Joan?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Is that still?
No.
We've had like 2 or 3 this week on I-24.
I think it's the deadliest and most backed up interstate in the Middle Tennessee area, if I'm being honest.
Well, yeah, 24?
Oh, yeah.
No crap, Sherlock.
Right.
You know, you say a lot of smart things, Sam. That wasn't one of them. I love you. 7:53 on Super. You know what? I'm just a little pissy because I've got to be here for another hour from 9 to 10.
Going nuts.
So I'm going to be in for Chris Hand at 9 to 10, and Joan Jones is going to be filling in 10 to 12. Joan, what are you going to talk about?
You know, stuff that's happening.
Yes.
You think I'm going to tell you, Dan?
Well, it's called the professional radio tease, Joan.
Oh, I see.
That's what talk show hosts do.
I've been too busy doing news, so I still haven't mapped it out yet, but...
You're going to come hang out with me from 9:30 to 10, though, right?
I am. I'm going to do that, yeah.
All right. You know, we could do like off the rails and just like do open phones.
Well, I love that.
You want to do open phones between 9 and 10?
Yeah, let's do it.
Fine with me, because I won't be in this chair.
We could do open. That might be kind of fun, actually.
Yeah, because Sam's actually going to be in here for me.
Oh, right.
We're shuffling.
Whatever.
We're doing the shuffle today.